They came to him with a question and asked, "Which is the greater, to show or to do?" So he answered them with a story. There were twins who grew up with the same opportunities and in the church. One became a preacher and preached around the world in places you cannot even pronounce. He preached from the word, and many were baptized. The other stayed in his community and helped the poor, the wealthy, the sick, the healthy. He was there in body, spirit, and the word. Most were not baptized, but all of them believed, and each went forth and did likewise. And with that, he turned to them who came with the question and asked, "Who was greater?"
Offering information for your mind. Enabling transformation for your heart. Sabbath School U, a weekly dialogue exploring God's Word and its application for today's world.
I'm Andrew Campbell, and this is Sabbath School University. Welcome. And we have three of our guests, who some of our viewers may remember from 2 weeks ago. I'm going to invite you to give us your name, again, what you're studying and where you're from. And then today, since we're talking about witnessing and service, I'd like you to tell me one thing that you enjoy about either witnessing or service, or one aspect of it that you enjoy.
My name is Katina Barrera Downs. I am from Mexico, and I am studying clinical mental health counseling. One of the things that I enjoy the most really is missionary work.
Okay.
I just enjoy going out there and helping out.
Very nice.
And I'm Kevin Bruce. I'm a seminarian, and I'm from Kingston, Jamaica. And one of the things I definitely enjoy is leading worship.
Okay.
Most people wouldn't think that witnessing is involved in leading worship, but it really is, and it also is a service that I love to do for the Lord.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Barrows. I am from Maryland, Bowie, and one thing that I enjoy about service and witnessing, I like how they work together. So we'll talk about that later, I assume.
All right. All right. Now, before we go into the lesson, Katina, could you read our key text for us and then pray? And would you mind praying in Spanish?
It'll be fine.
Okay.
Okay, let's read the key text. We find it in Acts 1:8, and I'm reading from the New King James Version. You shall receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you shall be witnesses to me in Jerusalem, and in all Judea and Samaria, and to the end of the earth. Let's pray. Padre nuestro que estás en el cielo, Señor, te damos gracias porque nos permites estudiar tu palabra y aprender de ti. Te suplicamos, Señor, que seas con nosotros en esta sesión y nos ayudes a aprender más de ti, Señor. Te lo suplicamos en el nombre de Cristo Jesús. Amén.
Amen. Muchas gracias.
De nada.
All right. Yeah. So we're talking about witnessing and service today. And yes, in the context of revival and reformation. Now, witness and service, in what ways are these words similar? In what ways are these words different? You know, how do we define them? Let's talk about these two words.
Well, I am going to say that through service, we're also able to witness about the character of Jesus or the love, that God has for us. We're able to set also an example of how to take care of others, how Jesus said it for us.
Okay. Okay. Now, if you could help me out, when you hear witness or witnessing, what comes to your mind?
I'll be honest, immediately it's knocking on doors and passing out tracts or colporting and something like that. Yeah, that's what immediately comes to mind. But it's not always that. And I can say that in terms of my experience. I feel like, especially being a student in social work, I'm in social work. When I'm able to serve and be with people, they're a lot more apt to listen to the things that I have to say after.
Okay.
And it's kind of like what people have said about Jesus. Jesus met people where they were, and he met their needs, and then he said, okay, come follow me based on the experience with them. So yeah, I think that's what I...
Now, you were saying something about the first thing that comes to mind is knocking on doors.
Yeah.
But there is many other ways to witness. It could be just quietly through our character, the way that we react, the way we handle situations. How do we live our spiritual life?
It's the principle of sharing Jesus or sharing God with others.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you can say that may be via the means of knocking on doors or passing out literature or one-to-one personal conversation. You know, there are many different ways of doing the same thing. And different ways work in different contexts. You know, you think about some of the contexts that are where one method works very well. You know, I think, you know, coming from a Caribbean context, when I think witnessing, I generally think, you know, tent evangelism, you know, because that is the prominent means of evangelism in the Caribbean. But then you go to places like Europe, for example, where if you put up a tent like that, you know, I don't know how many people are you going to get coming out. Depending on where you are, depending on your context, you know, you have to adapt. But the principle remains the same.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's sharing Jesus with
Definitely,
others.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And then when it comes to service, how would you narrow service down? What's the principle that's, you know, underlying everything? Whether it's giving gifts, whether it's spending time, whether it's, you know, helping others. What is a principle that service can be narrowed down to?
When I hear the word service, I hear serve in the word service. And, you know, just being there to do something for somebody, like you said, giving a gift or just sharing a thought, you know, with them. You know, we usually say that that's witnessing, but it's also, like I said, service.
Yeah.
Just being able just to do that for them. It's doing something for somebody that's going to benefit them.
I agree with that. What immediately popped in my mind when you asked the question was also doing it for free. Not asking any for the person to give anything back, not wanting anything in return, but just doing it for the sake of doing it. You know. So yeah, just the freedom of being able to do it and express that in a way that doesn't have any strings attached.
For sure.
When I think about that, I think about sharing. Just being able to share what you have. If you didn't have that, you couldn't go out there. I mean, I guess you could, but it's not the same. I think it's about sharing the wealth that you have come to found in Jesus or the Word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then one of the things that I'm sensing in all of your comments is the way that the two are, you know, linked, and you can't seem to separate them.
Yeah.
Sometimes we try to separate them, but it doesn't seem to work very well when you separate them.
Oh, you just had to hit on something, and I know for me, just hearing you say that, it's almost like one should cause the other to exist. You know what I mean? Serving somebody should be able to show them that I can, or the witnessing should come from serving. You see what I mean? Rather than witnessing for the sake of this is what I have to do. You know, man, that's so different than certain things that come with a cost or a price. You know what I mean? I don't know. What do you?
Yeah.
And you know, I just have a thought here that I'm going to throw out. You know, we live in a society that is very compartmentalized. You know, you have a plumbing issue, you call a plumber. You have an electrical issue, you do not call a plumber, you call the electrician.
Yeah.
And sometimes that compartmentalization gets brought into, you know, the spiritual aspect. And so it's like, no, I don't do service. You know, I'm just here to you know, bring the word. and that's the only thing I'm concerned with. That's someone else's portfolio.
Yeah.
You know, that's
the job of witnessing is reserved for the pastor.
okay.
If we need, the plumber plums, right? I have some plumbing issues, I need to call the plumber.
Yeah.
I have some electrical issues, I need to call an electrician. Somebody needs to be witnessed to. Pastor, I've got a coworker at work that needs me to witness, or that I need you to witness to. You can be witness to them. And I love what you said. It's doing something for somebody. Service is the same thing, or can be the same thing as witnessing. You see that they need something. They're going through a hard time. You go over and I'm here for you, and you offer prayer for them. You see that they may need some money and they're falling a little bit short of rent. You hear them talking in conversation or something, or child is sick. Maybe they were sick, didn't make it to work, and so you know things are going to be short for them that month. You know, you give them a little gift. It's a service, but it's also witnessing to the character of God that He's placed in you, that, hey, I see that you're hurting. I see that you're in need, and I'm going to give something to you, and I'm not going to expect anything in return. I'm not going to expect anything in return. A lot of times we witness or we do service because we want somebody to do something, but and we should also have no ulterior motive when we do service. And say, if you do, great. If you don't, I'm still gonna do it for you. And you know, sometimes it could be for selfish reasons. I remember there was this young lady that I worked with, and I witnessed to her. I thought that I was witnessing to her, and she just wasn't coming around. She wasn't coming around. And then about a year later, I called the job because I'd worked with these different individuals for about 5 years, and I called them to let them know that I was engaged and I was getting married. And I was talking to her, and immediately I knew that there was something different in her voice. And I had been witnessing to her about the Sabbath, and she told me, I started keeping the Sabbath.
Wow.
And it was just huge. I was like, the Sabbath? All I could say was the Sabbath. And she's like, yes, the Sabbath. And you know, Saturday, the Sabbath. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I was like, how did that happen? She's like, well, I remember you telling me about the Sabbath, but it just didn't make sense to me when you were telling me about it. But somebody else came in and told me about it. And then I was just like, wow, okay. And she put the two together and it made sense to her. And I realized in that moment that I was trying to get her, be the one to say, well, I brought her in. I was the one that witnessed to her. But God said, you're just a seed planter. I'm going to use somebody else. And sometimes we have to check our motives in witnessing and doing service to others or for others.
And I think there's where prayer comes into place too. If we are in the process of you know, witnessing and doing service for others, just going back to check our motives and prayers so that what we do, it's done for the right reasons. And so just a reminder, because I know sometimes it's you know, exciting to say, well, you know, I got so much, or I did this much, and it looks good on me, you know. So
Now we always want to, you know, keep our focus on Jesus, and we when we witness and when we serve, it's really all coming back to Jesus. Now, in Jesus' life, witnessing and service was a very important part of His ministry. How would you characterize the importance of witnessing and service in Jesus' life?
I think it's kind of is what motivated Him to do what He did. I mean, because even Him coming down to earth, you know, to be able to be with us and to be that sacrifice, that in itself is service. And then His life was a witness in itself that we are living out today. So I think it was vitally important for Him to be able to do that, because now I mean, how many years later are we using His life as an example for all of us to be able to follow, and for those who we're going to be able to influence, for them to be able to follow as well. So I think it's very important. And I mean, the Bible is full of examples of how that witness and that service that He did for those around Him were so important, that changed lives. The miracles that He performed, all of those things were service-oriented activities that He did that changed the lives of those and showed them and brought them closer to who the Father was.
Yeah, you're so right. Think about that time when Jesus is standing in front or sitting with his disciples. They're talking, they're wrapping things up. And they've all been talking about who's going to be the greatest, who's going to be the best. And he says to them, you guys have it all backwards.
Yeah.
And I said, look at me. And he said, I didn't come to be served, but to serve, you know? And to give my life as a ransom. He used service as a means of witnessing. Like you pointed out, the miracles, like the feeding of the 5,000. When he did that, people saw, he did a service for them. He saw that they were hungry. And because they were hungry, he fed them. And in feeding them, they saw who he truly was. You know, he came down. He didn't have to come down, but he chose to come down and to serve us so that we could understand who he really is, to witness to the character of God. So that we might more fully believe in him and take that and go service other people or serve other people and witness to them about the goodness of God.
I think there is a humbling aspect.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Really. Yeah, there is a humbling aspect about being able to serve others. It's not hard to, I mean, it's hard to go out of your way, out of your structured life, or you being able to set it up in a way that is comfortable. It takes a humbling of the spirit in order to be able to go out there and do things that are different, that maybe will expose you in some way to a risk or something, depending of what you're doing. But it takes the Spirit of God within us. It takes that for us to be able to do that successfully, if you will.
It's so funny that you say that, because I know that there have been times where I've been out serving, good Adventist serving, those in the community or even those at church. And so often I feel like I'm the one that has something to give. I'm the one that's doing all these things and I'm serving. And there have been many of those times when I've been serving, and I'm telling you, the people that I've been serving have served me and shown me God in ways that I would have never been able to experience had I not been in that, had I not had that opportunity. And it's just so funny, because those times for me are the ones that are extremely humbling, because it's like, look at me, I was the one who was supposed to be going to be doing this, and yet I'm the one who has been blessed by the situation. You know, man, it's...
I think about this, another story of Jesus. Thursday evening. They're in the upper room, and the bowl is there, the basin is there. Somebody's got to wash somebody's feet. There's no servant to wash their feet. The disciples are looking at each other. Who's gonna? I'm not doing it, because I found out that Jewish slaves didn't even wash another Jew's feet. And here comes the King of the universe, and he takes off, he lays aside his garment, and he goes and he gets the bowl, and he goes and he washes all 12 disciples' feet, even the one that he knew was going to betray him. That is a huge act of humility. Think about somebody that you know that has done you wrong or is going to intend to do you harm. Are you going to do that for them? But he does that, and he witnesses in performing that service of how humble we should be and how we should go out and serve others and be a witness for him.
And one word that characterizes that, in my mind, is love.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because you cannot serve with that level of commitment without truly loving someone.
Definitely.
And as you were talking about service, one of the things that I was picking up was that it has to come in the context of relationship. You have to truly love this, whoever it is that you're serving. If you want to serve them genuinely, the way that Jesus would have if he were here, and really, Jesus is getting that opportunity to serve through you. And so it's not if he were here. He is here, and he's using you. And just the idea of service happening in the context of relationship kind of changes the service game a little bit, because I know this might be a little bit controversial, but I know that sometimes service seems to do more for the person who's actually doing the service, like making yourself feel better about I'm a good person because this is what I do. So it's essentially I do this in order to fulfill my quota of goodness. And I don't want to get too controversial, but essentially service has to come out of a genuine love for people, not a selfish motivation, but it has to really be focused on others. That's the way that Jesus did it. Now we talk about Jesus. We talk about Paul and John now. What common thread runs through the experience of Paul and John that made them such powerful witnesses?
I think you said it already. It was love. It was love. You know, I hope that I coined this statement. Sometimes I say things that I coined and maybe it was me. But I said that John was in love with love. John was in love with love. In other words, John was in love with Jesus. He was in love with the love that he saw in Jesus. We have the great text on love, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. And continuously he exhorts us to love all throughout the scripture. As you go and you look at Paul and you look at the things that he's doing, and he's going from places, he's going from Corinth, he's going to Ephesus, he's going to all these different places. He's talking about the love that God has shown us. And so I think that as we go forward, as we witness, we should definitely share the love of God. And we should definitely, I don't think that we can really witness until we really experience the love that God has for us.
It's motivating.
Yeah.
That's a motivating factor.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if for those who have kids and for those who have like loved ones, the love that they have for the person that's near them, near and dear to their heart, they're going to want to do things for them. You know what I mean? And I think, just like you're saying in terms of the idea of love, it is a motivating factor that will make you go leaps and bounds to be able to make sure that these people are taken care of. And if it means serving or witnessing or providing, like all of those things I think are encompassed in what you were just talking about, and in that whole principle of love.
And you know, I don't know if any of you can look this up, but 1 John chapter 1 verse 3, the beginning part of that verse, I think that verse characterizes the motivation of both Paul and John and all of the apostles. Do any of you have it? 1 John 1 verse 3.
Yeah, I have it.
The very first part of it.
Okay, we proclaim to you what we have seen and heard, so that you may have fellowship with us.
Yeah. That idea of what we have seen and heard, what we experienced with Jesus. John had an experience with Jesus. He was, people would argue he was the closest of all the disciples. And you think about Paul, and you say, well, Paul wasn't one of the disciples, but Paul did have an experience with Jesus on the road to Damascus. And even though that experience was short, you can tell in Paul's writings and even in Acts that experience had a profound impact on him. And everything, in Paul's ministry seems to focus right back on that experience that he had with Jesus.
What was interesting about what you just said also is that, he had that Damascus Road experience, but he also had the Old Testament also. And in the Old Testament, he saw the love of God. That's one of the things that transformed my life also, because, sometimes we hear that the God of the Old Testament is different from the God of the New Testament. And, going back and reading the Old Testament for myself, I saw that God is so much in love with us, time and time again, he's crying out and he's reaching out because he loves us. And I think Paul saw that, and he was able to write a lot of what he wrote in the New Testament because of what the love that he experienced from God in the Old Testament. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to having an experience with God,
Oh, yeah.
experiencing Him, so that we are able to share that with others.
Yeah.
And I like the word that you use. Well, that was on the reading, proclaim. You proclaim and share something that you have heard, and you cannot do that if you haven't received it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes we may get frustrated with having not had an experience with God the way that we imagine it to be, or the way that we picture it and everything else. But I think even that is an experience.
Yeah.
Because it's, like I was saying before, it's motivating. It really, for some, it's like you've gotten to the very last of everything. And it may take something like being able to step outside my comfort zone to be able to get out there and see that being with those people who might not know God or who do, in difficult situations and trying times, that it is another time for me to be able to, get to be able to have that experience with God, because serving His people is serving Him, and essentially, so it's like being able to be with God's people and serving His people, whether it's in church like you were talking about or out in the community, that would give me another opportunity to be able to be with you. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole thing about having an experience to look back on it really is so important, because essentially when you witness and when you serve, you are in essence saying to others, I would like you to be able to experience what I am experiencing with Jesus.
Yes.
And if you don't have that experience, then I don't know where that passion for witnessing and service can really come from.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because essentially it would come down to, I want you to experience what I'm looking for, maybe.
Yeah.
But it has to be that I want you to be able to experience what I have experienced for myself. What John says, what Paul says, this experience that what we have seen, what we have heard, this is what we proclaim to you.
Yeah.
And that's it. The two are so closely connected. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, and that's all the time that we have for today. I really enjoyed discussing this lesson with you. It was absolutely amazing, and I really want to thank you for your contributions. It was lovely. If you would like to contact us, please visit our website at www.sabbathschoolu.org. That's www.sabbathschool.org. You can join us on Facebook right off of our site. And for today, that's all. This is Sabbath School University, and I'm Andrew Campbell. We'll see you next week.